Hi, welcome leaders. Today we are discussing puck reclassification for 2016-17. So I appreciate your time as we gather the information to redesignate our students after receiving the scores from CELT. Our objectives today will be to align puck reclassification procedure with our puck EL master plan. And our second objective is me modeling the procedure of redesignation of English learners. Things that you will need today is the CELT admin timeline. And whether you're in middle school, high school, or elementary school, you take the option of the new reclassification matrix for 2016 and 17. So you can see on the slide, I've showed you how to find it on the intranet. Step-by-step process. You go to operations, then you look under operations shared documents, find the testing and accountability folder, then the CELT folder, and then the SY16-17 folder. We also have the links in the Google Classroom assignment. So take a moment and pull your option up. As you're doing that, I'm going to talk through some background, which is our puck EL master plan. So we have a master plan at Puck, just like every district or school. And it states in our master plan that we are going to help Puck students be designated as English language learners, but build their academic and English language expertise. So in that we've developed a plan for identification, assessment, instruction, and professional development. Specifically for today, we're really talking about the identification and the assessment portion of our EL master plan, which is the redesignation. So some background, every student at Puck completes a home language survey when they are enrolling at our schools. This is one way that we designate them, whether they need to have a test called the CELT, or not, because a home language survey will tell us if they speak Spanish at home or a different language at home other than English, and that will move them to the next step. The CELT, once you're designated as an English language learner or you're brand new to the country or brand new to school and you need to take a test to designate yourself at what type of proficiency you are, you will then take the CELT, and it is a multi-part test. After the CELT and you receive your scores, you go through a process of reclassification. It is our goal to take all English language learners through a process by which they are redesignated fluent English proficient. The only way we can do that is having them take their CELT test and then going through a process of reclassification, which we are doing today. The criteria to reclassify a student as fluent English proficient is a 4-part process. So you will take the CELT as a student, and then you will receive your scores. Then you will look at a few different things: your performance and basic skills, your grades, and your parents will then ultimately approve your redesignation. This is a step-by-step process. So if you see numbers 1, 2, 3, and 4 on your screen, you'll see that you can only move to final redesignation is if you move CELT scores has a threshold, and you can only move to the next step, which is performance and basic skills. If you meet that threshold, you can only move to step 3 if you meet the threshold for performance and basic skills, etc. You cannot skip steps. So first of all, your CELT scores. So in order to meet the threshold, you must have an overall proficiency of advanced or early advanced on your scores, and we'll look at that in a second, but you cannot have any strand lower than intermediate. If you meet that threshold, then you go to performance and basic skills. You have two options here, and we'll review this in a few minutes, but you have your SBAC scores, your CASP scores, at nearly met or higher in ELA, or you have approaches, meets, or exceeds a Lexile level for middle and high school, or for elementary schools, you have a reading assessment at grade level. So Part two is you either have SBAC scores at nearly met or higher in ELA, or Lexile scores that approaches, meets, or exceeds. Then if you meet that threshold, you move to teacher evaluation. So you can either use one of three things: grades, our internal benchmarks, or an assessment that's decided upon by the school site. So if you meet any of those thresholds, you get to move to parent approval, where a parent gets to see that you have recommended redesignation and they sign off on it. So what does that look like? We have what is a reclassification matrix, and you can see on this form, this is half the form, to show that these are the four different thresholds: CELT, basic skills, teacher evaluation, and parent. That's the CELT section. Performance and basic skills, teacher evaluation, parent opinion and consultation, parent approval. Now, we will go through this step by step because I said you cannot skip a step. You can only meet thresholds to move to the next step. So we are going to start with CELT. If you notice here that you would input the student scores here, and if you notice, here is a copy of what you would be looking at, which is a sample student score. If you notice, this student got early advanced overall, which is the first column there. Overall, early advanced or advanced. If we go back, you must consider reclassification for those students whose overall proficiency is early advanced or higher. You can see that in the notes under the Red Star assessment of English language proficiency. Now we have a piece here that you could consider a student if they're at the higher intermediate level, as long as nothing is lower than the higher intermediate level. So if you notice back here, those students who overall proficiency level is the upper end of the intermediate level may also be considered for reclassification. So those are for students who you notice everything else is on track. So that's CELT. If, for this situation, this student has early advanced and advanced, they can move to the next threshold, which is performance and basic skills. You have two options here. You can either use their CASP scores, or you can use their Lexile scores. If you notice, their CASP scores are from the year before, and their Lexile could be current pre-test, it could be their current test, and we'll speak later about how you can reassess later in the year. But if you notice, let's look at our CASP. So this student reached standard met, which means they are able to move to the next threshold. If you look, the CASP performance level must score nearly met or higher. This student was standard met, which is higher than nearly met, ready to move on. We could also look at Lexile. If we look at this student, we can see that this student, an 8th grader, reached in the beginning of the year 905, the first circle, or in December 1045. And if you go down to the chart that we provided, and it's the back of this form, they actually meets the criteria. But if you look at it, must be in the range of approaches or higher. If you notice my 3 red stars, those are the 3 columns that you can look at per grade level in order to move that student. The student would then move on to the next level, which is teacher evaluation. If you notice, you have 3 different choices here. You could either use your grades in English language arts, the benchmark, the CASP benchmark, or an assessment that you choose at your school site. The student actually has a C or better from last year's report card, and they were able to move on. So, That student just met all the requirements. So then the principal circles yes, and then it goes home. And this is where step 4 is, with parent consultation. That's where they get to sign. They said, yes, we want to agree with that. So if you notice, the parent can either agree or disagree. They tend to agree, and then we move forward. All right. So we just went through the process of reclassification. Our model student was able to reclassify. Quick reminder that if they do not meet the threshold of a step, they cannot move forward. So they're immediately not recommended for reclassification. So with that said, we are now at the timeline. I mentioned earlier that we will talk about how you can do this twice in a year. But if you look at the timeline, which you also have access to through Google Classroom, and here there's a link on this page, this is part of the timeline. This is the timeline where we currently are at because you are all should be receiving your SELT results. You get them, and then by mid-February, you should have gone through the process that we just went through, the reclassification matrix for all the students who took CELT. You are then going to fill in the information and provide it to the SIS team. So anyone who was either initially designated because of the process or reclassified, there's a special spreadsheet that you'll get from SIS. You'll complete it and submit it to them by mid-February. And then by the end of February, you'll see that the SIS team will update PowerSchool and CalPads. And then at that same time, you are going to print that PowerSchool reclassification label and affix it to the CUME. We are also ensuring that at this time you have to have parent approval, like it shows. You have to have a signed form, so you need to ensure that those go out to the families after you do the reclassification matrix, get it signed, and hold that as a copy and place that in the CUME. You notice in red, we have the ability to go through the reclassification matrix again. So if something held you back, normally the Lexile data, you can go at the end of the year after you've done your end of the year level set and go through the process again because that child may have met the requirements by the end of the year. And if so, SIS will update PowerSchool and CalPads based on any new reclassified students from above. And then, as always, for any testing, you have to destroy any unused materials, and that's all in the directions from CELT. So if you want to get ahead of the game for next year, if you look at the timeline, I have it set up so you can see how to prepare for CELT, prepare for everything, which happens during the summer in preparation for next year. Currently, you can see where we are real time so that you can prepare for going through the reclassification matrix, redesignating students, and then moving forward with going through the process again at the end of the year if need be. I hope this has been helpful. You can always reach out to your superintendents for support. You can always reach out to SIS for their support, for their pieces that they do. And we are happy to help ensure that your students are redesignated as they move on from elementary to middle to high so that they are able to succeed. I hope all is well. Take care.